don't know what it is.
Right.
And if you want to change it, you change it by yourself. And our system keeps it in the back end. We have no visibility, and we will never ever tell you to share it with anyone, not even your close family, unless it's out of your own choice.
Right.
And so we find that, of course, because of family, some of our customers tell us the internet is slow, how comes this and this. Then that happens a lot during the holidays. You know why? Your kids will share it with their neighbors, their fellow friends, their friends in the neighborhood. Who doesn't want to be online? So some of our customers have decided that every time school closes, they change the password to make sure it's not the one of last term, so that they don't get disrupted. And in cases where a third party comes to us and says, we need information about this account because we think the internet was used ABCD.
Yes.
We only release that on law-mandated circumstances, including between us and the regulators. They would always cite for us an article of law that allows us to give them that information. If it is for individual customers, that has to come from the customer themselves, physically identifying themselves and putting in writing a request that the usage of this account is required by me for XYZ. The police have to come with a court order. They explain to us why they need it, and they show us the court order, and we release that information fully covered by law, not because of third-party interferences. So as far as third party is concerned, we are fully secured.
All right, and I know we have like 5 minutes to wind up, but we have the time that was taken there by the downtime in electricity. So Wanadiji, just to allude to the countrywide operation on the SIM identification, making sure that you can track and account for every SIM card going to a citizen, and that it is an actual person, not to be used illegally. How has that supported the service providers in terms of even the numbers, from complaints that you have received and cases of SIM swap since that initiative and intervention by the Communications Authority of Kenya?
I think the best, it's not about how it has helped the operators, I think it's how has it helped consumers. Because eventually it is the consumers who is seeking protection. By them providing, or by us ensuring that every subscriber is registered by the operator and they are accounted for, it's really towards protecting consumers itself.
Yes.
So, as I mentioned earlier, we started at 48% average, now we're at 93% average, excluding one player, I must mention. And to me that is success. And what we observe is that the team here can actually attest to that, is that we saw a bit of less and less complaints in that particular space. Complaints around spamming, complaints around impersonation. We had less and less of that. However, I think in the last couple of months, we've started receiving complaints, which shows an uptick. And the reason for that is, one, it could be the 7% that were not fully registered, or two, some who registered but using other people's details. So basically compromising the system. And that's why when Kim talked about trying to improve the registration details by taking an image of the person who claims to be the person registering, there was a lot of uproar during that period. Of course, as a regulator, we came forward and said, the law only mandates you to focus on the ID details, not the image or biometric details of the individual registry. But I must also tell you that I think it's high time for us to improve on that system. We might be forced to go biometric. Even as technology changes, we are now going to have many more devices getting connected. We're now going to call the Internet of Things. It means, therefore, as you connect all these devices, and allow humans to use those devices in the way in which they were designed to be used, it means we need more authentic, legitimate accountability systems when it comes to the users of those particular services. It will require us to improve on our registration system, and I think the process, for example, government promises digital IDs. A digital ID is not a card, it's a digital ID that uniquely identifies you. That could be one way of improving on our system of accountability when it comes to subscribers. You could add biometrics, but again, it's a conversation we may need to have at the policy level as well as the operator's perspective. And I can tell you, whoever is watching, it's important that as technology evolves, we also evolve our regulatory frameworks and the way we do things. So when we start some of these initiatives, some of the complaints we receive are more or less detracting us or, making it impossible for us to realize the true potential or dividends arising from technology innovation.
Yeah.
So yeah, from the SIM card registration campaign, I think we've learned a lot of lessons.
Yeah. And it moved from complaints and skepticism to actual realization.
Actual realization. And I also say this, why that has become even more important is that the government recently launched the Hustler Fund. And for the Hustler Fund, if you're not properly registered, most likely you're not going to receive that particular service. And it became apparent that operators must ensure that they move the registration from the current status to 100%, so that we do not exclude other people who are well deserving. But I must also observe that we had an issue with some people who are in remote areas, or marginalized areas. For us to ensure the success that we had, they had to deploy certain online tools.
Okay.
But in some of these remote areas, we had two challenges. We do not have access to the internet because we don't have infrastructure. But secondly, we have most people not having smart devices. Smart devices basically is you call it a mobile phone. This is not a phone, it's a device. Okay, it's a smart device.
And it's an iPhone for your information.
Okay,
that's why I say device.
So if you don't have a smart device, it means therefore you end up being excluded from going on. And perhaps that's an observation that we made. And that's why we never really went hard on the 7% people who are not registered, because we reckon that most of them are in marginalized areas and they're using 2G type phone. Lastly, now that I talked about devices, today in Kenya, we've got about 65 million or 63 million smart or connecting points or terminals. And if you look at it, we've got a significant number of citizens who do not have access to smart devices. What percentage is that? Is about 50%. So even as we digitize, even as we enhance access to quality services in the ICT sector, there's a risk that we're actually excluding a section of the population. So the challenge we have for us as regulators and policymakers is to come up with frameworks, incentives that will allow more citizens to access smart devices to fully enjoy the benefits availed by this digital transformation agenda. So I thought I needed to just drop in, because sometimes we assume that everyone is happy,
yes,
or everyone is involved, while actually we are advancing at the expense of a significant population that has no opportunity to access smart devices.
All right. Time is fast spent, so I'll give an opportunity to those who are here to ask a question. Wanajap, you'll forgive me because I believe you're in the two other panels that are following, and I believe the Deputy Governor has to attend to other pressing issues. So I'll give you, just step up, you can take the mic, take the microphone, identify yourself, who you're asking the question to, and go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, and the panelists in front of me, I'm Eugene Odinga, inventor of foodstuff plastic, a plastic which can decompose. a sign language interpreter too. I was question one in country of in 2019 examination. So I've been studying with deaf for 4 years at a school robot at TISE, learning Kenyan Sign Language. My questions go to Safaricom, Mr. Steve. I've seen that Safaricom are doing something great. And when it comes to SIM updates, you have lost your customers, and 1 to 2% of those customers are deaf. Why? Because they don't access information on how to update their phones. Why? This is because of language barrier. I've seen that you are using only 2 languages when you are delivering your information mostly. That is English and Kiswahili. In which, in the Constitution of Kenya, we only have 3 national languages. That is English, Kiswahili, and Kenyan Sign Language. For example, today, if they have an issue with his or her light, and he or she goes to customer care desk at Safaricom shop, you may find that he or she cannot be helped. Why? Because there is no any sign language interpreter there. And again, my question goes to a toll-free number or SMS. You can find that deaf cannot call direct, or he or she cannot chat a good English. I know their English, it's not that perfect, in which a person can understand it well. And again, my last question is that deaf with these digital life, they do video call, and you may find that accessing good bundles services, it is hard for them. Now, when it comes to them, you are losing, and actually you are losing, and this is to Airtel and Safaricom. That are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And just before you comment on that, Stephen and Golden, the Deputy Governor urges us to allow him to just exit stage just briefly because of some pressing issues. But he had assured us everything is okay, everything is calm. We did have the DCC assure us of the same. So do not leave your seat. And as we want to take a quick photo just before that, Wanopute is helping us with that. So if we can stand while we still have the Deputy Governor with us, and just take a quick group photo. And yes, just to mark this occasion, we just move closer. All right. Smile, yes, smile. Everything is okay. The Deputy Governor says so. Let's give a hand to the Deputy Governor as he leaves and to thank him for his presence with us. Asante Daktari for your time with us, and all the best in the afternoon for the session. Mambo ni mengi wanasema, masani machache. So let's continue. Stephen, there's a question directed to you, and just as those who are asking questions, make it brief, please, because of time. It's fast.
Thank you for your question, and congratulations on your achievements. I actually intend to learn sign language as another skill. It's a Safaricom, we encourage each of our employees to pick up another skill. Now, there's definitely a shortfall here in terms of you call our customer service line, it's English, it's Swahili, there's no sign language, and perhaps that is because it's a voice-activated service, so naturally then the sign language option doesn't lie there. However, you might be surprised to note that each of our shops countrywide, in Kisumu, Jubilee, Tafo, okay, you're shaking your head, so clearly you disagree with what I'm about to say, and I think that's fair. But each of our shops ought to have, maybe that's how I call it myself, ought to have a sign language interpreter. And not just obviously for sign language, but for PWDs with various forms of disability, our shops are accessible. I really would be happy to hear from you after this session. If indeed, our 2 shops here, Jubilee and Tafo, do not have a sign language interpreter, because that's an omission. It's something that we believe should have happened. That is the policy of Safaricom. I think there's a lot that we have to do to improve taking into account the sign language component, especially if certain sign language, people who are hard of hearing cannot access our shops easily. So I think there's something that can be done, perhaps from a technology perspective. I'll sum it up because, as the moderator said, we're clearly rushed for time. But I'd be happy to hear from you if indeed our 2 shops here in Kisumu do not have those sign language interpreters. It's really crucial that we amend that if that's not the case.
For your information, so that's how you get a job there. So make sure you follow up with Steve. You might be positioned in one of the offices. It's only fair that Golden may also.
Yeah, so Airtel has gone big, especially on the sustainability agenda, and one of it, of course, is diversity and inclusion. So one of the things that we have done is that we have trained all, not specifically people, in each of our shops. We are now extending it to our dealer outlets. We started it last year, so that then they can all be trained in sign language. The second thing is just adapting technology. We are now working on something called a video-based contact center. We recently invested heavily in an infrastructure that would allow us to do that. Okay, we've seen it in other countries. I think in Egypt they actually have a contact center that specifically addresses the needs of people with hearing impairment or the deaf. Now we have also taken a step further, that in the routing of our calls to the contact center, we are working with obviously the Kenya Society of the Blind. They have established the numbers, the mobile numbers of customers who have our SIM cards, who are actually, blind or have some kind of impairment. So what happens is, in the offering of our services, we are now sensitive to that kind of, difference, or rather, we call it, we are differently enabled, right? People are short, tall, or others are, predisposed to certain specific things. So we are pushing the inclusivity agenda very strongly, and obviously you can visit our shops or maybe call us and find out whether we are doing some of these things. Glad to work with you.
All right, to the next question, and I believe we'll have one more just because of time. Your name and direction.
My name is Musa Moses. I'm from Consumer Information Network. My first question goes direct to this mobile communication providers. We have got mobile money, and in the case of a demise, how do you actually process the claim? And if these claims are not claimed, where does this money go? My second question: when one purchases a line and this line is double registered, you find that if I purchase a line today, then I receive calls from the other person on the other side. My third question is, the M-Pesas are being attacked. Do you have a mechanism whereby you caution the M-Pesa agent, or do you have a toll-free line that they can call in case there is an emergency?
All right, I believe that's good. 3 questions are good. We request for time.
Just one.
3 questions are enough, sir. Please.
Just one. The communication authority. Please, kindly. I just
okay.
We put it that there are some providers that provide internet that are not actually good. What is the mechanism, or what have you put in line that can caution the consumer to actually know that this one is right and this one is wrong? And
all right.
How can they report?
Thank you. Thank you for your questions, sir. Good questions there. We can start first with DG on that question, and then to the service providers.
Straight is that you need to, one, be aware that the person providing the service is registered or not registered. It's not as simple as that. License or not license, it's not as simple as that. So some will actually come and provide you the service in the name of Jamii Telecom, because they cannot be traced. So here you sign papers Jamii Telecom, but actually they are stealing capacity from Airtel or Liquid or Safaricom. So those are some of the nuances. So the first thing is that you have to look at the mode of registration. Is this a legitimate company or is just any other person? 2, visit the database of all the licensees in that area to see whether they are part of the license providers or not. Thirdly, we have a complaints desk, especially in Kisumu. We have our regional office here. If you are suspicious of any person in that space, you are invited to actually report, and our officers will be deployed to go confirm whether that is the case. or not. But most importantly, I think it's good to work always, first of all, first principle, is this a known firm? Just on the look of it, is this person known in this place? If they're not, inquire more and you'll be able to get an answer. But we remain at the disposal of all consumers in the original offices to be able to respond to some of those complaints.
Thank you. Due diligence there as well. So Stephen, you can start.
Yeah, so maybe for Airtel, recently, of course, gone right above the line in promoting our mobile money services. So that is Airtel Money. Now, if there is a demise of somebody close to you, what tends to happen is that we make an attempt to reach out to you, okay? Because if you notice, by the time you sign up to our Airtel Money services, there's a piece of detail that talks about next of kin. So once you give us that information, that is the person that we try to get in touch with. We give a period of time. If they do not get in touch with us, then we are required by law to remit those funds to the unclaimed financial, what do you call it? Yes. So we basically send it, send this amount to the unclaimed financial assets authority, so that then, in case the next of kin, comes up at some point, they can then go directly to them and claim the funds. So there's a process for that. So we don't sit with the money, we don't keep it. The second thing, you talked about having a SIM card, and then during a period of time, you realize that somebody else, okay, you get callers of the previous owner of the line calling you. For that, we call it more like a hot recycle. Ideally, after a 90-day period of inactivity, your line can then be recycled and sent back to the market. What we do, we have a period of time within which we keep, because you see, this is not like unlimited, resources that we have. Lines cannot be kept in perpetuity. So what we do is to ensure that we give a period or a duration of time within which we can then try and engage you to win you back and engage you to see whether you're still interested in that specific line. Now we have a process, and I just wanted to highlight it, that during the time we went on a re-registration or re-verification process, which was I think around 2021, what we did is we created a process within which you would then deregister lines that are registered against your ID that you feel are not yours, okay? You find that sometimes I would buy a SIM card, and the person who's using that SIM card could be my house manager, for example. So she's the one who uses it. She actually then, transacts some mobile money with my name. So what we did is to empower the customer to check lines that are registered against their ID by dialing *106#, okay? To prevent situations, such as obviously use of a line that could be registered under you by an unknown individual. And secondly, making sure that we do not recycle the number and throw it back to the market within a short duration of time without making efforts to try and win you back. I think if I don't, there's a last question you must have asked, I must have missed it, but it was directed to M-Pesa, so I'm not wrong, right?
I believe I heard M-Pesa, yeah.
Thank you for the question. Obviously, you're a very energetic gentleman. I'm insisting that you must ask the last question. I think it was important for the easy to answer.
True.
The process of accessing funds is similar in many ways to Airtel. However, the difference here is that if you're accessing funds which are less than 30,000 Kenya shillings, then you don't need to go through a huge, long, drawn-out process. All you need to do is come with a death certificate, with a letter from the county administrator, a confirmation obviously of the ID of the person, the deceased person, and a sworn affidavit. So these documents, and these can be told to you if you call a call center. They will tell you the same things in case you're not capturing everything I'm saying. For any amounts less than 30,000 shillings. Any amount below that, then it's a more drawn-out process, because then you need letters of administration. So letters of administration, you can be guided by a lawyer as to how to acquire letters of administration, whether the person died intestate with a will or without a will. But suffice it to say that if money is kept on that account beyond a certain period and it's not claimed, as she said, it goes to the UFAA, the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, where it is still secure. So if you came after a year, we would redirect you, telling you that credit has been sent to the UFAA. We do have toll-free numbers through which our service agents can be accessed for any queries. It doesn't matter what. If there is numbers that have been registered using your ID and you wish to check, again, call the same number. And if there's a number that is unknown, then you can send that number to *106# so that that number which was wrongfully registered with your ID comes up in our system as a fraudulent activity. So within the context of M-Pesa, I think in answering the first question, I suspect that I have answered your latter question, but we do have a 24/7 call center which will answer any questions, queries you have about your service on M-Pesa or or any other services you're accessing through Safaricom. So again, I'm happy to share with you some of those numbers after this because it's very straightforward.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you to Madam Appeal. Your name and question, the last question.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm Laura Estacio Muto, under Consumer Credit Suite Association, and I only have two questions. One is about the business licensing. You find a case whereby, like for example, I take myself, I have a small business and I've followed the protocol that is supposed to be done concerning the licensing. And then at my shop, you find some people coming from nowhere, that are the people that want to see how you got the licensing. Could there be any way that people from the office or from the ground should be sent, or maybe as a consumer, I should be given the toll number or the way forward that when people are coming to my shop, I should know that these are the people that are supposed to come to my shop? Because at the end of the day, you find out that they're coming to my shop, harassing me, and I'll either pay double money ahead of what I've already paid, and yet I have the license.
Oh.
The second question goes to my boss, Mr. Steve. I believe my friend has said it, but it's disturbing me because I'm a victim. About the line. You find that I've been not using the line for maybe 6 months or something, or maybe, for example, I've been out of the country, and people surrounding me knew that the same line is the one that I was using. When I come back, I found out that my line has been given to someone. Is there any way that you can help in such a situation? Thank you.
You can start and the authority will finish with the licensing.
Perhaps you don't need the authority. Thank you for your question. You can't keep a line, colleague just said, because numbers, or what we call popularly lines, is a finite and limited resource, which has to be recycled when it is not used for a period of time. The ideal lifetime of a line without any revenue generation activity is 90 days, so 3 months. So if you left the country beyond that period without doing anything, then you would lose your line. What we do, and we have a lot of customers who live outside the country and who still keep their lines. I would encourage you that within that 90-day period, in order to avoid losing your line, because it's just how it works, because we do not know whether you're coming back, there's no way of knowing, is to undertake a simple revenue generation activity. It could be sending a small amount of M-Pesa. It could be having someone call you. But for us, that's the only way that we know your line is valid and active and it belongs to you. Otherwise, then it will churn, which is the technical term that's used, and it will be recycled and given out. But typically, it might not churn immediately, but it will go back sort of into the space where it is ready to be given out to someone else. If you come back beyond the 3 months and you didn't do anything, it could be 6 months, and your line is available, then if you call our toll-free line, then there's a process you'll be taken through to find out if the line is still available. If it is available, then you may be able to access it. But if it's not available, then unfortunately, you'll have to restart with a whole new line. So the easier way to do it is to, within every 3 months, if you're out of the country, if someone calls you, or you can, it's really anything. It's really anything that shows that the line is active. So you don't have to send huge amounts of M-Pesa on it. Someone could send you airtime. And that way the funds are to us.
Thank you. Bwana DG Finance.
Thank you very much for that question. What basically keep is saying on that is be an active participant. This is a partnership of yours. And numbers, why they recycle them, it's because they're finite, they're scarce, and the demand is always on the rise. So, and sometimes how regulators go about it is to even go further to provide new prefixes to generate additional numbers. So instead of when you see 0722, 0721, we do that to try as much as possible to get more numbers. Unfortunately, they're limited. We're dealing with Taiwan. So be an active participant in that space. On the issue of licensing, I don't know whether you meant that my CA officers come to the shop and demand to know how you obtain the license, or they're just intruders or masqueraders. In whichever case, I think you're right, we need a mechanism that allows you to verify that actually we're dealing with genuine people, genuine officers from CA. I just want to confirm, do we flash our IDs when we're undertaking compliance? This one, we do. The officer must identify himself or herself before you engage in that conversation. And I have a fairly professional team of officers. There are not many. And since we are not many, sometimes we have criminals taking advantage of that, understanding how the CA system works, so they'll come to you and try to extort from you. My officers do not ask for money from you, and we don't accept cash. You have to make payments directly to the bank. So every payment must be accounted for. And if anyone is asking you for cash on inspection, then that must be a criminal, and that is not a CA officer. Thirdly, we are, maybe to just put it in a futuristic perspective, is that as government is digitizing, we are also automating a lot of our processes. We want to limit the interaction between customers and officers, so that if you are not part of the system of how CA works, you will easily be identified, because there's a way in which we're going to empower you as a customer or a client to be able to verify some of these issues. So I think that in automation we have an opportunity to limit some of these challenges, because we really want the small businesses to thrive. We don't want you to be busy trying to respond to issues of compliance, and especially for people who are not CA officials. I've seen some cases whereby the governor has left. You have enforcement officers from the governors or the county government. They show up with a list of compliance issues, including CA compliance issues, where we have no view of what they're actually doing there. So no one is going to ask you about CA compliance issues unless it's a CA officer who is able to identify themselves in that regard. But we're going to do better, create more awareness. We're going to automate so that you have an easy way of verifying, including perhaps our officers. If you have inspectors, then you must know this inspector is from, you can verify their numbers by checking it up on your mobile device. So I think stay assured that our interest is really to see you grow, as opposed to being harassed by manuscripts.
Mark, if I could just update the information I gave the lady previously.
All right.
So I've just received some up-to-date information that if you dial at *100*4# *100*4# #, then you'd be allowed to keep your line up to a maximum of 2 years, but there's certain fees associated with it. So again, you have to pay some money. It's 500 shillings for 6 months. I think about 1,000 for 500 shillings for a year, 1,000 shillings for 2 years, 200 shillings for 6 months. So again, there's a fee that you'd have to pay, but hopefully that is what you are. Thank you.
Asante. Thank you for that, and I'd like to
we need to share that fee. Regulators, because
the DG says they need to share that fees of extension of retaining your number. All in favor say aye? No. Just joking. I'd like to appreciate this panel, the first panel. It is not over. With this panel, we have concluded, but the conversation continues. And as I did mention to Wanajap Mabutu that he would forgive me for not engaging in as much, but he is in the 2 other panels that we have today, the one following and the one in the afternoon. So Wanadiji is going to lead right now to for tree planting activity, go through the exhibition area, and we will continue with the program. And I'd just like to appreciate, and you could help with the, just an applause. First of all, the Deputy Governor who left just a few minutes ago because of attending to other issues. The DG, Ezra Chilova, for convening this meeting, for hosting it, and observing it every year without fail. We appreciate you. And Stephen Kipchines, Chief of Corporate Affairs Officer at Safaricom PLC, as well as Goldemir Opio, who is in charge of Customer Experience, the Director there at Airtel Kenya, as well as Jen Kibene, who is in charge of the Customer Experience, the Director there at Wananchi Kenya, and to Jacob Ogutu, who is in charge of the Wananchi Program Consumer Downtown Association, who he represents as the CEO. And I'd like to appreciate every one of you here as a consumer for paying attention, for listening, and the program continues. And I'd like to just segue into the next one and say, as they leave stage, because we've already taken the photo off here, the next panel will be on Consumer Forum, and it's themed around the importance of quality of service and quality of experience for customers and service providers, moderated by Samuel Ochieng. That's up next, and that's what you're looking forward to. Of course, we'll have some music as they leave stage. Let's give them a hand. And Asante Sana. You're free to leave the stage, and it's my pleasure to be your moderator and sponsor. Session starts at 12:30. That is what I've been informed. So we just have about 14 or 12 minutes to refresh.